Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I thought it was about time I jumped on here. It's one of them things. Hopefully you saw the alert. Everyone got notified. YouTube's been acting funny. I don't know. It's been hard for me to be on it. Been trying to upload stories. They seem to work good, but I don't know. I still have quite a bit of equipment over here I got to set up. That should be fun. I think I really wish I hired somebody to do all this, but it is what it is. This is more of a news thing in a way. I call tonight's show the network. It's 6 threads, one question: who controls the passage? I got to thinking about this. Now, see, I haven't worked on this stuff for a little while. I've been working on other stuff, and today was a weird day. I started asking myself some questions, and so I started pulling the threads again, and I took the top things that were in the news. You know, and oddly, all of these are stories that I have either reported on or talked about or at least asked questions about. And, and that's probably the case with a lot of channels, not necessarily just channels, but, just news agencies. Oh, I need to fix my camera, I believe. And I gotta find the remote. But I do believe there's something extremely bizarre going on, guys. You remember, back in the day, Alex Jones and all the conspiracy guys, and they used to say that, the world is controlled by a bunch of elites, a network of people, and they'd make the decisions, and that was running theory, and that's what branched off to like, okay, these elites are like aliens and stuff like that, and so you kind of got to thinking about it, and you kind of got like, well, okay, well, if they're doing this, then what are they doing, and I got a story that about this guy. Well, I mean, I got the data center story. I got a couple more data center stories, believe it or not. I got this story from this other guy that was, basically what this other story is based on. And this guy is basically your normal dude that goes in there and he records badge numbers and shit like that for the government. I'm sure it's a boring ass job. And they started moving him around, and he has to make these other badges, and these classified badges, and they start letting him go down to, lower places within the compound. Well, anyway, like I said, it goes into a whole government project I've never heard about. And when you look at the data, it sure sounds like that everyone has been replaced. I mean, it reminded me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Anyway, that's going on, so, hopefully you're watching it. Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Oh, hi, chat. I'm sorry, I just looked up. Hello there, first time I've caught a live. I used to watch every video, yeah. Well, man, I'm glad to have you here. I'm on and off. I admit it. I've been having problems. Trying to deal with everything, trying to get gear situated. My son's autistic, so anytime there's a storm, I can't be on, and just bouncing back and forth, it seems like. But I can do the stories because I normally write those when he's asleep. He's actually up right now, and he's decided to let me do this, sort of, maybe. He'll probably call on me. But it is what it is. You gotta work with what you got, I guess. And for some reason I decided to add more work, and of course you guys know that I got those other channels up. But anyway, glad to have you here. Hope you stay. Still getting everything worked out. That's going to be a while. That's all I know. If you guys could only see this massive machine over here on my right. I don't know if I can turn the camera over there. I probably can't because this is a stationary. And maybe it will let me. No, it's not going to let me. I need a light over there. Okay. Right here. This is half. This is a quarter half of my desk. This is an audio machine. This is for. I had to get a new one. They're fucking expensive. The shipping on them costs like $70. I've never paid 70. Well, I did too. I actually paid $70 shipping for a guitar, but it was coming from overseas. But this thing is heavy. It's massive, and it controls like audio ins and audio output. It's not on currently, but it will be on here soon. I got the last two hookups, but yeah, it's it's for this. It's for yeah. There's the the tonight's story I wrote out and everything. I don't know. But yeah, Tuck, it is. There's a book on the 7 ruling families. I don't know if it's the same one we're talking about. There's a couple. Well, there's actually a couple different ones. There's also one that has to do with the 7 brothers of the 7 families, and these were the ones that were supposedly that made the entirety of the U.S. government or whatever. But the 7 brothers, or the 7. Whatever, the 7 sons, they called it, 7 sons, here in Virginia, are the ones that created Virginia, the Constitution, and the Constitution that is based off of what we use today. So if you really want to travel back that far, the ruling families, then you would actually need to talk to them. And I'm sure there's some crazy supernatural shit going down with them, because one of those families was part of the Salem witch trials. Yeah, there's some crazy shit there when you start looking back. I mean, I heard the family theory, and then I heard that there's a network of individuals that control and dominate the world and control it. I still question that. That's the thing. You got to question every single piece of information. Here, anywhere, anything you see online, anything anybody tells you, you need to question it. You absolutely need to question it. You need to look at it. You need to come up with possibilities, and you need to instead of accepting it, you need to. I mean, because most of these stories, most of these older stories, these like the 7 ruling families, the stuff that the stuff that's happened in each state, and the stuff that's happening around the world. They're still just speculations and perspectives of people who saw something and they had to write it down, or they had to talk about it. Just like I have to talk about this tonight. There's nothing is 100% factual. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's where you look for the information at, because you read through something and something about it doesn't make any sense, and then that's what you pull on, and that's what you work with. And the same way with the news we have that flows in today. What I'm calling the network, or a network, or a larger. First, let's define this before we get into the story. The network. Okay. Just like anybody, they're on a computer, they're working, they're talking to people, you're on Facebook Messenger, you're talking to a group of people or whatever. You have a network, you have all these individuals, and all these individuals, depending on the amount of power that you possess, can make these individuals go do different things. It's the same way in the old day when somebody would pick up a phone, or a gangster would call a bunch of different guys and say, look, I need you to go do this and this and this and this and this. There is nothing difference between crime and crime etiquette or crime syndication as there is to governments. Governments are crime networks, regardless of how you want to put it, regardless of how you want to talk to it, and regardless of what you want to call it. Governments are crime networks. They're crime they're syndications that have become something else. When the U.S. looks at Russia, it doesn't look at Russia as a country. It doesn't look at the Soviet Union as a country. It looks at it as a crime syndicate. When we talk about it, you talk about like when Putin goes out there and lays roses down, and these other guys lay roses down. You know, this group of individuals modeled the way they do things after the way the Italians did, because the Italians still do it today. They do it. It's political. The Italians do it. It's some shit's going down, and the mafia is getting ready to rise back up again. You know, you have to run those parallels to them things. Somebody is running something. Somebody is doing these things. Maybe they're making up some of this shit. I don't know. But I think what it is, you have a almighty syndicate that is running the Five Eyes or whatever you want to call them, and you know they're running everything. They have a plan for the world, and each one of these things. Well, I'm sure there's more. You know, the network is a large circle through of interconnected pieces that all make other things do things. But I am positive that somebody is running the show. Yeah, Raymond Reddington. Somebody is running the show. You have a kingmaker. Somebody is running the show. Somebody is saying, let this happen so this can happen. So this person can move in. You know, the fucking Bible calls it the Antichrist. Think of the main kingmaker that runs everything here on earth. You know, you could probably call him what you want to call him through history. There's always been somebody. Always been somebody that says, this has to happen. Ah, shit. And I'm not talking about, like, our president. And I'm not talking about presidents of other places. I'm talking about there's somebody out there that is unaffiliated to these governments and these countries and these things that make these things happen, because there is no way you can make a clear, radical decision unless you want something to absolutely happen that might cost human life. Whoever this is, or what they are, doesn't care about human life. They don't care about money. They don't care about resources. They don't care about if one government's going to find out about it. Because there is definitely somebody up there pushing the button saying this has to happen and that has to happen for this to happen. And the people that are doing the things don't know what comes next. That's scary. You got people that know they're doing something, but they don't know why they're doing it. So then there's also the allegiance factor. There's people that run down the chain that show an allegiance to one group or one organization. Let's call him the kingmaker for the moment. And they will do whatever he says. And they will do it without question. Because they either, one, think that he has the plan for the way the world should be. Or two, they think he's divine. Or three, they think he's from somewhere else. And that he holds knowledge of our future. So there's someone out there. Well, say, I mean, on the lesser scale, sure. But if somebody controls the Pope, there's somebody that controls our government. There's somebody that controls Poland. There's somebody that, I mean, you know, Italy screwed up. They opened their mouths the wrong way. And something made Rome shrink from being what it was to the smallest portions, untouchable in the world. Think about how Rome was after the fall, and the Pope that still had it, and everything it owned. And the Catholics, they still own every fucking thing. But now they're having to sell everything. Something is making it happen. The Pope gets orders from somebody. And I'm not saying that's God. There's a reason there's an American Pope in there. There's a reason they're talking about the Third Temple stuff now in Israel. Hell, I just found out today they found the temple vessels. They found, think about this. They found the temple vessels. I got a story on the back end that I want to do about that. But after 200 years, they know where they were. That supposedly some of those went up to, Rome, and was on display and hidden. And there still may be some up there, but they found the vessels. Which means they're going to build the third temple. They've already sacrificed the cow, the red cow, which was, if you look at that and the story behind that, man, that is fucking crazy. They had to wait all this time for there to be a cow that was born that didn't have a blemish on it. Once you look into it, you see how hard that is. How crazy that requirement to build this building is. Oh yeah, and then there's Trump. There's the thing, the videos, the thing where they come in and they say that Trump is the not the Messiah, but the other thing, the thing that brings in the Messiah. I don't know. Somebody's up to something. Somebody's making the things happen, and somebody's figured out a way to get there. And I think we're headed down that path. I mean, hold on there. So now we need to start with an earlier story, and I'm doing this to remind you of what may have happened or what you may have, remember hearing when I was talking about it, because there's a lot going on. And I'm going to start the story the way I ended it. Okay. Her phones were reset to factory settings. Both of them, work and personal, sitting on a kitchen counter, next to her wallet, next to her keys, in a house she never came back to. That's not a theory. That's the New Mexico State Police case file. Melissa Casey, 53, administrative assistant at Los Alamos National Laboratory. This is when we go back to the missing scientist. There was definitely something there. What? We don't know. But the lines keep getting drawn, and the image starts becoming clearer and clearer. And that's the reason she's in here. She dropped off her lunch to her daughter on a Wednesday last June, walked away. And by the time anyone noticed, she was 3 miles down the highway near Tilapia with nothing on her. They found her a year later in a national forest near a firearm, cause of death still open. And here's the other thing that's also true and also documented, sitting in that same file. Before she disappeared, she lost her security clearance over taxes, hers and her husband's. She told a co-worker she was making payments, trying to get it back. And I want you to hold on to both of those facts at once tonight. Not pick both, pick one or both. Because that's the show. Not what the secret, who gets to know it, but who gets to move. Somebody made this woman disappear, and they made her do it. They cut her security clearance off. Okay? You're working at Los Alamos Laboratory. You can't go anywhere else. There's nothing else you or your husband can do. So you have to work at a lower position at the place where you held security clearance, because they say you owe taxes. And they take it away from you, and you got to play ball with them, because they don't want you to see something. They don't want you to talk about something. And then they found her after she disappeared for whatever reason, whatever thing they pushed her to. Her husband's still alive. She's not. Did she do something for her family? It sure sounds like it. We call what's coming the network. Not because there's a building with that word on that door. You're not going to find anything attached to this, a building or government agency or office that has the word network on it. That has to do with this. In a way, when you see public telephone and soon to be the internet, commercial, not commercialized, but under government control, that will be a network. It's all part of it. They all control it. They all control the switches. They all turn it on. They make you see and make you do the things they want you to do. They have that power and they have that control. And they seem to want us to do things. Because every thread I'm about to hand you is a door. And in every single case, somebody else's still has a hand on that door. Now let me open them one at a time. The vanishing glass. Starting in 2022 and running through spring, the House Oversight Committee list grew from 10 names to 11, then to 13. People connected to nuclear research, rocket propulsion, fusion, aerospace defense work, dead or gone. And I want to be clear on a name off the board first and on the record, because that's the deal this show makes with you. Evidence before implication. Every time. Nuno, the MIT's fusion physicist. I can't really say that for some reason tonight. Words are hard. People keep folding this down the list, or into a list. He was murdered in December by a named man, a former classmate, in a case with an identified shooter and motive that has nothing to do with Los Alamos or the Pentagon. That's a solved homicide. That swept into a pattern because the timing was convenient. We say that out loud, we move past it. But here's what the explanation, here's what doesn't have an explanation yet. Anthony Chavez, 78, Los Alamos foreman, retired. Gone since May of last year. No note, no sign of a struggle. Investigators say an exhaustive search turned up no indication he was meant to leave either. William McCassell, retired two-star general, aerospace research background, walked out of Albuquerque's home in February and hasn't surfaced since. Left his phone, his prescription glasses, everything that tracks a body through normal days sitting on the table just like that woman. Something made him do it. I've even had people look for him. They use satellites and AI and stuff like that and try to trace paths. There's people that are on the net and YouTube that have went out and looked for William. There's a lot of people that like to do stuff in the desert. There's a lot of people that like to explore the desert. The desert used to be a safe place for murderers and people who want to disappear. It is not that anymore. There are tons and tons of YouTubers that like to go through the desert, find things. They found old caves and things like that. They said are connected with dumb bases. And some of them have disappeared too. There's something that's calling our scientists out. Something that's making them set their information on the table and leave. I'm sorry. This is just too much of a coincidence. Carl, the Caltech astrophysicist, the JPL collaborator, shot outside his home in February. There's a named suspect in custody now, awaiting a preliminary hearing. 29-year-old previously arrested for trespass on his property. So that one has a face attached to it doesn't make it simple, makes it not blank. Why was he wanted to do it, I wonder? There's been a lot of speculations. The JPL side of this list runs as long as Frank Mallard, a Space Institute I can't even talk, specialist who died in 2024. No autopsy performed. They just threw him right in the burner. Monica, an aerospace engineer, director of NASA's Material Processing Group. I want to add, when they first were talking about Monica, I mean, I got the impression she didn't know what she was talking about and that she was just making up research papers. I didn't know anything until the other day about her being the aerospace director of NASA's Material Processing Group. They buried that, by the way. Anyway, she walked into a forest above Los Angeles on a Tuesday morning last June and never walked out. There's still a page online asking hikers to keep an eye out for her, just like they haven't found her, but they have. Stephen Garcia, government contractor, high clearance, left his Albuquerque home on foot in August, took a handgun, left his phone behind. That's 3 people who put their phones on the table, took a gun, and disappeared. That were scientists. How is that not coincidence? Take a gun and disappear. And this year, 2 more names got added. Not by a blogger, a YouTuber, but by a sitting member of Congress after an official inquiry had already closed. One of them was Matthew Sullivan, a former Air Force intelligence officer, died in 2024 in Falls Church, Virginia. Just a hop, skip, and jump from me, by the way. Causes of death was never made public. According to the congressman who added his name to a file, Sullivan had reportedly been expected to testify in a federal whistleblower case about UFOs. Write that down, we're coming back to it. The through line isn't an act, isn't somebody's killing dinosaurs. I mean, dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, so to agree. Someone's killing scientists. I don't have evidence for that, and neither does the House committee. They said it so themselves. The through line is smaller and honestly stranger. An unusual number of people with high-level clearances at the same time, at the same handful of institutions, in the same 3-year window, either can't be found or can't be fully explained or done the same fucking thing. And the government's own posture toward this fact has moved slower than the public's appetite for answers. Hold that, it's getting interesting. Now, I may have to go to the restroom here in a second. I am. We're gonna pause at the 30-minute break. Gotta run to the bathroom. Now we'll be right back. We start with Act 2. The ledger opens. Alright, I'm back. Oh, sorry guys, had to go to the bathroom. Had to go check on something. And I wish I could offline it. Maybe I can. I'm used to hitting the buttons. Oh no. Yay! Okay. Jesus. God, it is hot. I'm serious. I could put on Mad Hatter's hat. I think it's bigger. This, by the way, if you're just wondering, this hat, I have two of them. They were on the set of The Godfather. They're like some of the ones they use. I don't know why I started wearing them. I've been wearing them for years. That one might be a little cooler. But anyway, the ledger opens, and you need to get down, cat. 400 miles from the North Mexico high desert, in a completely different building, a completely different agency. Spent this spring and summer doing something that looks on paper like the opposite of secrecy. May 8th of this year, the Department of War opened a website, war.gov.ufo, or /.ufo. First public release under a program called PERSE. Batch 1, Batch 2, then 3. Then a 4th of July 10th. 40 files, documents, videos, images, audio, military AVR accounts of something over the eastern seaboard in 2019. He says it still can't be explained after 28 combined years in the Air Force and Navy. Footage from Space Shuttle Columbia's 1996 mission, which I do want to show before long. A jellyfish-shaped object filmed over Atlantic New Year's Day 2020. Doesn't maneuver, doesn't drift. Doesn't maneuver, drifts with the wind. Probably a deflated balloon cluster, according to people who reviewed it. Don't look like one, though, because we've seen other ones that sort of just go. Somebody ran it through an AI upscaler this past weekend, and it went everywhere online. That gap, probably mundane, went viral regardless. It's based on the whole UAP beat compressed into one clip. And I want to say, when they ran it through the AI, it looked like a space shuttle. It cleared up everything. And maybe the AI scalers are telling the truth. Maybe these are what these vehicles look like. I don't know. But it's worth, if you see one of these videos online, if you see a picture online, and it's kind of fuzzy and hazy, like it seems like everybody takes nowadays with a camera when it comes to Bigfoot, UFOs, or some other strange shit. Run over to an AI upscaler. I think there's free ones on the internet. Put it in there, see what happens to it. It might be worth the look. I don't know. I'm going to start doing that just to be sure. The site has been logged over 1.7 billion hits since May. That means roughly 1.7 billion people around the world believe in aliens. Well, at least to some degree, that they're willing to go out and look at these videos and pictures and things and have their own curiosities about them. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's that many people who's holding the one thought that aliens might be real, that they're curious about them. Most people believe in aliens because they think they've solved something. But regardless if they want to admit it or not, they think they've solved something. I remember a time I had this lovely home down in North Carolina. It was out in the country. Wasn't bothered by anybody. They didn't have neighbors for miles. And it was an old chicken farm. someone had taken 4 trailers and stuck them together, and they had took and made the underpinning out of beer cans and cement. The place was real cool. It had like a river and everything. I'll see you later. But I've done a lot of wild stuff with it. I admit it. I did a lot of wild stuff with the property. But in my bedroom, I had like 6 mattresses in there. It was just a big mattress sex room, I guess you'd say. And it had a skylight over the top. That was one of the coolest things. It had a skylight. And at night, I used to look up before I fall asleep, and I'd pass out. And one night, I was looking up, and I saw this object come flying at us. And like it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was for sure something was going to crash into us. I hadn't been drinking, smoking pot, doing any other kind of drugs that night. That was wild. Anyway, we've all seen something. I saw something when I was a kid. I saw a fireball chase me and my uncle and my 2 cousins or 3 cousins? My 2 cousins, my grandpa reported it, and they wouldn't talk about it no more. But anyway, here's the detail I actually want you to be left with. Buried in that 4th batch of files, next to a modern sensor footage, a transcript from 1949, a conference of physicists held at Los Alamos. Same campus we are just standing in Act 1. Los Alamos, here again. I am not going to tell you that means something. I don't know if it does. It might. It's sure curious. But the Department of War's own declassification efforts just placed a UFO conversation inside the walls of one laboratory Congress is currently reviewing for how many of its own people it's lost. That's not my connection. That's their filing cabinets. So who's grading the homework? And this is a new thing that has happened, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it. I have a whole nother story on this thing, but I'm going to throw this out there. In June, the White House put a Harvard astrophysicist named Avi Loeb in charge of the new UAP Science Advisory Council. We've covered him before, back in Disclosure Day, when the 3rd batch dropped. I went looking into his Galileo project that night and came up with a list of critical mismatches I wasn't thrilled about. That skepticism hasn't gone away this year. It has gotten more specific and more direct. Avi Loeb, you're not doing yourself any favors if you hear this. Loeb says the job is binary. Figure out whether what's in these files in foreign hardware are something that didn't originate from this planet at all. His words, more or less. If it's the second one, he's called it the biggest discovery in the history of science. Notice the size of the claim sitting next to the size of the operation reviewing it. A council with no budget beyond travel reimbursement. Now, I want to say that again. This member of scientists and people from around the fucking internet are doing this on their own free will. They're going through the documents, the ones that we haven't seen yet, and the ones we have, and they're making determinations if it is from here or something we have, or so they're going to be cued into a lot of classified material if they're not already cued into this classified material. What I find interesting is this council has no budget beyond travel reimbursement, which means they're not supposed to get paid to do this. You know, they can get paid if it costs them to go to California or Israel or wherever. The roster grew quietly this summer. No press release. Just names Loeb confirmed. When a student reporter asked him directly, I want to say that again, there was a student reporter that asked this question. Reporters today, this is looking real bad on you too. Two astrobiologists, and a third still pending, a man named Tim Dimfrey, president of the Templeton Foundation. Templeton Foundation. Former CEO of Christianity Today. He holds a doctorate from Harvard in religious studies. Set with the job title next to that credential, a religious study executive on a body reviewing classified censored data, helping decide what counts as evidence of non-human intelligence. Is this the best man for the job? Or is it the man that needs to be in the job? I'll give you the other side its due, because that's the deal. The council also includes Michael Sherman, professional skeptic, founder of Skeptic Magazine. I have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about that too. Not tonight, though. His whole career is built around debunking exactly that kind of thing. So it isn't a closed room. It isn't an obvious gift or whatever. So we think. But you have a room. So it's a room. All these guys got to get together. It's a room with a skeptic, a physicist, and a religious study executive, deciding together what a species-altering discovery is allowed to look like before the rest of us see it. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that either. Now, just hold on to it. Think about it for a second before we get there. Now, the reel that isn't released. Let's go back further. Not 1949, but 1952. 2 weekends that July, radio operator at Washington National Airport picked up an unidentified returned stacked over the Capitol and the White House. Pilots confirmed visual contact from the air. It made national front page. The Air Force answer, delivered at a press conference at the end of the month, was a tempered eversion, a weather phenomenon, or weather explanation for one of the most witnessed UFO events in American history. People believe it about as much as you would expect, but people tend to forget. The man running an Air Force U investigation that year, about to take over what would become Project Blue Book, by the way, was Edward J. Rupertal. And somewhere in that same window, he briefed a closed room of elite scientists and military officers on what the Air Force actually knew. Not a press conference version, a real one. That briefing was recorded, reel to reel. And it ended up, how exactly nobody's fully explained, in an archive of MIT's Lincoln Laboratory, a defense contractor, not a records office, not the National Archive, a lab. A lab. It sat there for 74 years. In May this year, a congressman named Eric Bischoff sent Lincoln Laboratory a letter, not a request, a naming. He had the catalog number, AFATIC Film 03/452. He told them exactly what he told them. He knew exactly what they were holding, down to the file name, and he wanted it preserved, reviewed, and handed to the National Archive. By late June, in public forum, he announced that Lincoln Labs lawyers had confirmed the rule exists, and they have agreed to turn it over. 30 days, he said, that was the deal. It is now August, and nobody has released that tape. I want to be precise about what we actually know, because this is exactly the moment a show like this earns your trust or loses it. We know the file exists. We know a member of Congress forced an institution to admit to that on record. We know a 30-day deadline came and went. What we don't know, what nobody has independently confirmed, only from a podium, is whether this specific rule is even about the Washington sightings or a different briefing from the same very busy year. Right now, that connection is in one man's read, not two sources, one. So here's the pattern. And it's not the one that you would expect. It's not they're hiding a smoking gun. It's smaller than that. And maybe scarier for it. The institution can admit something. Exist, agree to publicly release it, blow through its own deadline, and face zero consequences, no penalty, no follow-up headline. The story just stops until somebody stands up and says, hey, now it's August. I got a message a while ago. I get some weird videos go. Oh, not sure. I had a video. I have no idea. All right, dude. I think it gets into a lot of trouble. All right. I hope he wasn't expecting me to play that on the air. I couldn't do it. There's no way. Okay. One more thing quickly, and it doesn't own the act yet. It earns a line. In June, David Grush, the same whistleblower whose 2023 testimony helped kick this whole disclosure machine in gear, was back in front of Congress in the middle of his remarks without stopping to explain it. Without offering a shred of evidence, he used the phrase, sentient plasmoidal life. That's the whole quote. I didn't elaborate. Nobody made him. We've been down this road in the show before. They were not from space. I spent over a full hour on the idea of whatever's in our sky may not be a craft at all. Might not even be a matter that we understand completely. Grush just tossed a new variant of that into the congressional record like a footnote, filing it and moving on. Now, this would be the break. And we get into Flock next. This is an interesting thing that links it all. But so far, we have a missing scientist. Again. Same thing that happened. We have the UFO story. And now we have the council. And the little things that David Grush said. I still don't know. I still wonder about the UFO stuff. I'm still concerned about it because in my theory of the network, there is something up there at the top. And maybe they have decided to show themselves. Somebody, something that's in control. This is how you would do it. But I don't know. Now, there's a different kind of network. Not classified. Installed on a pole outside your hardware store. Regular viewers. I already sat through 3 episodes on this company. Who owns the grid a while back? Flock Safety, license plate cameras. Back then, it was somewhere around 40,000 units and an investor map that I was building. Here's the update. It's not 40,000 anymore. Flock's own number, as of this summer, is roughly 120,000 cameras nationwide. Most of them running without warrant required anywhere in the loop. People have started fighting back now with their hands and not petitions. Somebody in upstate New York took an angle grinder to one. Oakland, paint. Indiana, a straight truck ran right through it. Enough places now that it isn't a story about one angry guy anymore. It's a pattern of ordinary people who've decided the legal channels move too slow. Meanwhile, the misuse cases keep stacking up from the inside. 5 officers in Albany, Georgia, arrested and fired this year for pulling plates for no legal reason to. 2 more in Greer, South Carolina, and Milwaukee. And this is the one that should actually keep you up. An officer used the system to track his romantic partner's location 124 fucking times. Her ex 55 times. No warrant, just log in and a search bar. I mean, I can go on there and type it in and say, I want to see so-and-so, and that's what, and I'm going to watch their freaking history. That sounds like a stalker to me, boys. The company didn't walk one thing back. They've been piloting a feature called distress detection. Expanding audio sensors so they can hear you more. Built to catch gunshots, so they often listen to the sound of human distress in your voice. Your cell phone already has that. Public pressure killed it before full rollout. So the network isn't invincible, at least you don't think it is. It responds to certain types of pressure. That's worth remembering, because the next piece doesn't. So far, this is the only system within the network that responds to pressure. But now it has changed. Now it has become under the guise of the FBI. So now it is a federal crime to mess with one of these cameras. Not a state crime, not a newspaper article. You cut down the camera, police get you, you go into an FBI database, and a federal court, will found you guilty and put you in federal prison. It's a whole different animal. You don't get pity of the state anymore, so to say. Same week, a federal watchdog reports said Homeland Security is planning to nearly triple its own surveillance tower count. That is Homeland Security. A different agency, the same appetite. And this one doesn't have a comment section. You can't tell it what to do. The private company backs off one feature because enough people got loud, while the federal government quietly plans to triple its own footprint in the same season. They're just using the same equipment, different equipment. You know, they're going to use the audio thing. So it failed a public pressure to begin with, and now the government, the Homeland Security, is implementing the audio stuff. So you can't get away from it. I'm telling you, it happened in the same 8 weeks on 2 sides of the same fence. While people were fighting one part of the flock system, the government was quietly answering it the way they wanted to, which means you don't get away from it. That's the same way with data centers, guys. You can fight the data centers in your public town. You can march up and down the street. You can yell and scream. You can go in front of the city council. But if you haven't watched enough videos of city council meetings where the council members are trying to tell the people about data centers and they're coming and there's stuff like that, everything else, you can see they're being pushed and they have to do certain things. Hell, I've even seen it in mine. They make them think they're getting what they want, but they don't. I mean, the town up above me said, okay, well, we can't get data centers. If data centers move in, they'll have to buy us a new fire truck. Do you think they care? Do you think they would even blink at the kind of money it would cost to buy you a fire truck? That's crazy. And they put it in the law. The data center will have to buy us a fire truck if it's this tall. Well, now we're going to walk into something else. And I'm going to pull you back here, pull you way back. Try to anyway. Because this is the shape underneath tonight's show. And I want you to see the whole thing before I name it, sort of. A woman's phone gets wiped. Nobody tells you by whom. A file sits in a defense contractor's archive for 74 years, gets acknowledged, gets a deadline and misses it. A camera on a pole logs your movement 400 times and you never once asked a judge. And 9,000 miles from any of that right now tonight, while I'm here, cargo ships are idling in the Straits of Hormuz, waiting on permission from Iran's Revolutionary Guard to move through waters that isn't anyone's to own. One of them took an unidentified hit this morning. Iran's negotiating a temporary arrangement with Oman and not with Washington. That would let the Tehran keep control of a route for up to 3 months. 2 days ago, the American president called the whole thing simple. Said it will be open by Tuesday. Today, he's calling the Iranian government, word I probably can't say, talking about a final deadline before something worse happens. Different scales, same shape. Think about all the stuff that we've done over there. We moved our B-52s just now. Our B-52s are the only plane that is capable for nuclear release in this aspect. I believe Iran is a place where we will see the deployment of a nuke and maybe even a nuke get used. Iran is the flashpoint. And I think everybody's on board now. That's the network. That's all it's ever been. Every thread I've handed you tonight, not one man behind a curtain, not one building with a name on the door. It's so smaller than a conspiracy. And it's everywhere. A conspiracy would need to be, it's just whoever in whatever room gets to decide who moves and who waits. Who gets their clearances back and who doesn't. Who gets the real and who gets the 30-day promise. Who gets to cross the strait and who sets anchor watching waters they can't enter. Every thread tonight is a door. And I told you that at the top, and I'm telling you again now. Because it's the only claim in this whole story I can fully stand behind. Somebody else has their hand on all of them. And I will say that again. Somebody else still has a hand on all of them. It's part of a wider thing. Now, that's the end of tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I will put the research links and stuff like that, stuff from CNN, News Nation, a lot in the description. I will in the comments. Stay paranoid, my friends. Tomorrow